So Rainbow Six Siege came out 9 years ago, which is mental. And I remember in the first year, or maybe the second year, a lot of people were playing it and I never really got round to it. I never got my hands on it. I think that mainly is because it just wasn't my sort of game at the time. And of course, since then, I've played many genres of games, especially because of these videos. And I think now it's finally about time I check out this game. Especially because I've played so many other Ubisoft games. And with this, it's definitely their most popular game in terms of active player count. Because in those 9 years, in a way, it hasn't really dipped down at all. It has in a sense, but it's done pretty well in those 9 years to just keep on going. And that's mainly due to the updates they've made. So they're always adding new operators or, nerfing them and buffing them. Changing maps and adding new ones, adding new battle passes, etc. So the game is always kept fresh and it's always changing. So if you are an active player and then eventually you leave and then maybe you come back and return, the game is definitely very different to when you last played. So the majority of the players have stuck to the game and kept quite loyal, I guess, because they know if they leave it's going to change and they're going to have to learn new stuff. It's also definitely very multiplayer focused, whereas a lot of the Ubisoft games, I know they've done many multiplayer ones, but I feel like this one is definitely the most they've focused on it before. I mean, even in The Division, I feel like you could definitely play that by yourself with AI teammates, and this is definitely their most online game, which they hadn't really done as much before. So if you don't know what Siege is about, it's basically a tactical shooter game, so like, The Division and Ghost Recon, those games are heavily open world. And if you like that sort of gameplay, and if you want the tactical shooter but also want that massive freedom in the open world, those games are the ones for you. In my opinion, I preferred Ghost Recon, especially if you're more of the casual gamer. I would say definitely go for Ghost Recon because it's just a bit more forgiving, whereas The Division, especially the first one, is a bit more difficult to play, especially with the enemies being, bullet sponges. And then in comparison to this game, of course, it still follows that tactical shooter gameplay, so all of the maps are very close quarters and it follows a search and destroy style gameplay. Probably the most popular game mode is Bomb, where funny enough you defend the bomb and you defuse it, whilst the other team try and attack you. And then there's the two operator sides of attackers and defenders. If anything, out of all the games they've released, this one is probably the most simple and straightforward in terms of what you actually do and the gameplay. You know what you're going to get. So as I mentioned earlier, they're always adding new stuff. So one of the main things is the operators. And they're all split up into their different categories of basically when they first come out. So the game follows years rather than seasons, so it's gone from year 1 to year 9. And the Pathfinders are basically the original operators that were first released in the first 3 months of the game. And then that's also split up into their CTUs. So that's SAS, FBI SWAT, GIGN, GSG-9, and Spetsnaz. And if you're wondering how all the operators differentiate between each other, that would be with their primary and secondary weapons, their gadgets, and their abilities. So if we look at Ash as an example, who's still a very popular operator to this day, her primary is a assault rifle and then her secondary is a handgun, and you have 2 of them to choose from, whether that be the R4C or the G36C, and then her gadgets is a breach charge and a claymore, and then her ability is also breaching rounds. Some operators do have 2 abilities, but this one is a very good one, so it's sort of good enough to just be one, and that means she can breach through any wall if it's not reinforced, where of course the majority of operators can't do that. And this includes higher windows or ceilings, and even when an operator uses a deployable shield, which some do have, and not only does it destroy that, but it can also damage the operator behind it, and that's sort of why she only has the one ability. Even other parts of the environment, so if someone puts down barbed wire, which is also another piece of equipment, her breaching round can easily wipe out that. If we look at another operator example, we have Twitch, who uses an assault rifle as well, or a shotgun as her primary, and then her secondary is also a handgun. Her gadgets are smoke grenades and claymores, and then her ability is a shock drone, and that shoots out multiple fire lasers and that destroys enemy gadgets and can also damage enemies, of course. And what's great is that they also recharge, so it's not like a limit. There is 3, but one of them recharges every 15 seconds, and it has unlimited range as well. So some gadgets that she can destroy with them that other operators may use are bulletproof cameras, so usually you can't shoot them, but with these lasers, if you shoot it at the weak point, it will get rid of it. But the main ones you will be looking for are the cameras, the signal disruptors, and the nitro cells, and all of them can be wiped out with her shock drone. But I think that's enough of just some of the examples of the operators. As you can see, there's so many that you'll get to learn. But the thing is with this game is that people have been playing it, of course, for a very long time, and a lot of the players have unlocked every single one of them. Whereas for me, as a fairly new player, I still don't understand even half of them at the moment. So in a way, you do have to take into account that the game isn't that friendly to new players. It's not as bad as anything like Destiny 2, for example, which I also did a video on, and that is so overwhelming for anyone that is trying to play the game for the first time. It's sort of made only for the ones that have been there from the start. It's a bit easier if there's a new DLC in that game because you can play from that point, so you sort of understand the story, but that's more of the narrative and the story with that game, as well as also all the weapons you unlock. But for this, it's mainly just because there's so many operators in this game, and they're always going to be adding new ones. But over time, you will get used to it. It will take a while, but just to, keep that in mind before checking this game out, that if you are planning to, you're going to have to play it for a good amount of time before you really understand everything. It's not sort of the game where you start it, you play a few games, and then you come off every now and then, and that's if you're really planning to put a lot of time into the game. Whereas for me, it was a case of just sort of having fun with it. I sort of wanted to play it and also play it with my friend, so I wasn't going to really try and take it that seriously, but of course all the other players will do that. But I've been playing it for the past few weeks, and I have had a lot of fun doing it. And just to mention, the more you play, you do unlock the currency in the game called Renown, and that does allow you to unlock all the operators, but you can also buy a different in-game currency, and that can also get most of the operators apart from all the Pathfinder ones, so the ones that have released from the base game. So yes, all the others you can actually buy with real money, and there is actually a whole bundle or a pack. I think it's maybe £40, it may even be less, and that unlocks every single operator. So if you are planning on really playing this game and putting a lot of time into it, maybe that would be a good choice for you to basically unlock everything all at once for the price of, I think, £40. I thought it would be a lot worse considering how many there are and how much you would have had to actually get in Renown to unlock everyone. But to be honest, it doesn't sound that bad. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the most popular game mode and the one that I definitely played the most is TDM Bomb. But there are the hostage game mode, and you basically defend the hostage until the time expires, or you can also kill everyone on the other team, and that's the defender's role, and then the attackers will have to either rescue the hostage or bring them to the extraction point. And then the other game mode is secure area, so that's basically where you just defend a point. It's quite self-explanatory, and then that team will have to hold that position for at least 10 consecutive seconds, and the defenders will have to basically stop them from doing that. And those are the three main game modes in multiplayer, but you can also play all of them modes in different sort of categories. So there's standard, which is basically the normal regular one in a 5v5 match, and then there's ranked, which of course is the more competitive version of it, and then there's quick match, which is basically just quicker game. So mostly the more experienced players will be playing the competitive game modes, and then quick play is actually probably the best option for you if you are a new and starting player. I think you have to reach a certain level, I think level 5 to actually get there. But once you get there, it's quite fun to just play quick play, just to get to grips with the game, and then that's mainly for the casual players, and then the more experienced are on ranked. So it's quite good at separating the two. Of course, you still are going to get fairly experienced players in the quick play or just standard, but even as you die from, let's say, another operator using a certain gadget or ability, you will then find out why they killed you and see what the mistake was, and then usually by the next time you encounter that operator, you don't fall into that trap again. So it's basically just learning from your mistakes, and then eventually you do understand all of it. It just takes a good while, but it's all based on the strategy, and it's so tactical. It's probably the most tactical game they have released, and it's still a lot of fun because you just never know what's going to happen, and it's great that it is still very popular 9 years later. And if there's one main takeaway from this video, that is it, is that the fact that there's such a big learning curve in this game, and although, as I mentioned, that they do separate the casual and more experienced players, at the end of the day it still is a lot of learning from the first, good amount of time you play the game. And that's why if you were considering playing this as a new player, that's the main thing to really keep in mind, and just to not, give up right away, because you are going to be dying a lot, and that's the main thing. And although that was the main reason why I got the game, is to just sort of have fun with my friends, it wasn't really a big deal. Over time I've still played it a good amount, and I will be playing it quite a lot, but even I know it will be a long time until I fully understand the game, and that's just me. But it is a big investment compared to any of the main multiplayer games at the moment, and I think that's the best way to sort of wrap up this video. Hopefully you've made a decision on if you should play this game in 2024. Many of the videos I do, it is sort of clear and I give a straight answer at the end of the video, but for this video it's sort of hard to give a straightforward answer to anyone. It's sort of based on what I've said in this video and what you've taken away. But if you do like the sound of it and you've taken in, you know, the pros and the cons, of course this game is 100% worth playing, and that's why it is still very popular at the moment. That being new players and also ones that are returning from years ago. If you did enjoy this video, then let me know by tapping that like button down below. And if you enjoy single player and also multiplayer games as well, then that's what this channel does focus on. I have many playlists on a selection of games, so you can subscribe to the channel if you'd like to. And that was Siege in 2024, and bye bye.